By dawn, Lucien Ashfell would realize I was gone. He would feel it in his bones first, the bond snapping awake, the scent he could no longer escape. If he followed it, the claim would become inevitable. And if that happened, I would no longer belong to myself. I didn't run because I didn't love him. I ran because loving the Alpha King meant surrendering everything else. They would call me foolish for leaving his bed before sunrise, for turning my back on a crown, a bond, a fate wolves prayed for. But none of them understood what a claim truly cost. Lucien's wolf had already recognized mine. I felt it the moment his breath brushed my neck, the heat, the pull, the silent command threading through my blood. One bite, one mark, and my life would no longer be my own. So I left. I took nothing with me, not my cloak, not my shoes, not even my name. Only the echo of his scent clinging to my skin, and the certainty that he would come for me. Because Alpha Kings do not forgive flight. And Lucien Ashfell would hunt me. Not across borders. Not across packs. But across fate itself. I just didn't know who would find me first. Him. Or Malric Frostclaw. Before the story begins, take a second to like this video and subscribe. It tells YouTube you want more stories like this. And it helps this story find the right pack. The curse always hit hardest during the blood moon. I knew this because the entire court knew, whispered it in corridors, behind raised goblets, beneath the weight of forced smiles. Alpha King Lucien Ashfell, unshakable ruler of the northern packs, became something else when the red light bled through his windows. Something unstable. Something dangerous. And tonight, for reasons no one had explained, I had been summoned to his chamber. "You'll stay until dawn," the head servant had said, her eyes carefully blank. "He cannot be left alone." I was nobody. A low-ranking wolf from the Ashen pack, brought to the palace as part of a peace offering after my father's rebellion failed. I cleaned floors. Avoided eye contact. Survived. I did not belong in the Alpha King's private wing. But orders were orders, and disobedience meant exile, or worse. The room was darker than I expected. Heavy curtains blocked most of the moonlight, but the red glow still seeped through, staining everything the color of blood and warning. Lucien stood at the window, his back to me. Broad shoulders. Stillness that felt like a held breath. The kind of control that came from fighting something violent beneath the surface. "Close the door," he said quietly. I did. The click of the lock echoed louder than it should have. He didn't turn. "What's your name?" My throat tightened. He had never spoken to me before. Had never looked at me long enough to need a name. "Mira," I whispered. "Mira Ashen." A pause. Then, almost too soft to hear, "Ashen." He said it like he was tasting the word. Testing it. The air between us thickened. "You don't have to be afraid," he continued, still facing the window. "I won't harm you." But his hands were clenched at his sides. His breathing too careful. Like he was counting each inhale to keep something leashed. The bond hummed. I didn't understand it at first, just a strange pull low in my chest, a warmth that shouldn't have been there. My wolf stirred, curious and reckless in a way that terrified me. "No." I forced it down. Forced myself to stay still. "Why am I here?" I asked. Lucien finally turned. His eyes were gold, brighter than they should have been, lit from within by something that wasn't entirely him. The curse, maybe. Or the moon. Or both. He looked at me like he was trying to solve a problem. "Because," he said slowly, "you're the only one whose scent doesn't make me want to destroy something." My breath caught. He took a step closer. Then another. The bond flared hotter. "You feel it," he murmured. Not a question. I couldn't lie. "Yes." "Do you know what it means?" I shook my head, even though part of me did. Even though every instinct screamed the truth I didn't want to name. Lucien stopped just in front of me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his skin. His gaze dropped to my neck. Lingered there. "One bite. That was all it would take. If I claimed you tonight," he said, voice rough, "you would become mine. Permanently." "I know. And you would hate me for it." My chest ached. Yes. Something flickered in his expression. Relief, maybe. Or regret. He leaned in, breath brushing my neck, and my wolf whimpered in response. Then we won't, he whispered. But he didn't move away. And neither did I. We stood there, suspended in the space between inevitability and choice, while the blood moon burned overhead and the bond wrapped tighter around us both. By dawn, I would be gone. But that night, that cursed, impossible night, I stayed. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, with Lucien's scent wrapped around me like a second skin? With the bond still humming beneath my ribs, alive and insistent and wrong? He had fallen asleep near dawn, the curse finally releasing its grip. I watched his breathing even out, watched the tension leave his shoulders, and felt something crack open in my chest. He looked almost human like this. Vulnerable. I hated how much that mattered. The smart thing would have been to leave then, to slip out while he was unconscious, before the bond could deepen. But I was a coward. I told myself I needed to understand what I was running from. So I stayed until the servants began moving in the halls. And that's when I heard them. The claiming ceremony will need to happen within the week. I froze outside the council chamber, my hand hovering over the door I'd been sent to clean. The voice belonged to Lord Garrett, the king's chief advisor. He hasn't marked anyone, another voice countered. The bond may not even. It doesn't matter. Garrett's tone was sharp. The Alpha King cannot rule without a mate. The curse is worsening. If he doesn't complete the bond soon, the instability will spread to the pack. Silence. Then a woman's voice, cold and measured, and the girl. Low-ranking. Weak bloodline. But if she's who his wolf has chosen, we'll make it work. Make it work, the woman repeated. You mean control her? I mean prepare her. Teach her protocol. Dress her appropriately. She'll be the queen consort, Lady Thane, not a political player. Her job is to stabilize him and produce heirs. Nothing more. My blood went cold. And if she refuses? Garrett laughed, a sound without humor. Who refuses a king? I didn't hear the rest. I was already moving, my wolf clawing at my chest, panic flooding every nerve. Produce heirs. Stabilize him. Protocol. Not love him. Not choose him. Not be anything except a solution to his curse. I thought of the way Lucien had looked at me last night, like I was something precious and dangerous all at once. Like the bond terrified him as much as it did me. Did he know what claiming me would mean? Did he care? Or was I just another political necessity wrapped in the language of fate? I found myself back in the servants' wing, hands shaking as I scrubbed floors I'd already cleaned twice. My friend Elara noticed immediately. Mira, you look like you've seen a ghost. I couldn't tell her. Couldn't risk it. I'm fine, I lied. You were with the king last night. Her voice dropped. Everyone's talking. They're saying. Don't. She flinched at my tone, but I couldn't soften it. Every word felt like glass in my throat. If I stayed, I would become his. Not because he loved me, but because the bond demanded it. Because his wolf needed stability. Because the council needed a solution. And I would spend the rest of my life being managed. Elara touched my arm gently. Whatever you're thinking. Be careful. I nodded. But I'd already made my decision. That afternoon, I requested permission to visit the temple. A common enough request that no one questioned it. I was granted 2 hours. It would be enough. I didn't go to the temple. I went to the edge of the royal grounds, where the forest began and the guards grew sparse. I stole a cloak from the laundry, sturdy boots from a storage room, and nothing else. No food. No money. No trail. The bond pulsed, confused. Searching for him even as I prepared to sever the connection. I'm sorry, I thought, knowing he couldn't hear me. But I won't be your political solution. I won't be anyone's cage. The moon was rising as I stepped into the trees. Behind me, the palace glowed golden in the fading light. And somewhere inside, Lucien Ashfell slept, unaware that by dawn, the girl his wolf had chosen would be gone. I ran until my lungs burned. The forest swallowed me whole, branches clawing at the stolen cloak, roots threatening to trip me with every step. My wolf howled inside, confused and angry, pulling me back toward the palace with invisible threads. Toward him. I ignored it. The bond wasn't fully formed yet. It could be broken. It had to be broken. By the time I reached the river that marked the border of royal territory, dawn was just beginning to bruise the sky. Pink and gold bleeding into deep purple, beautiful and damning. I didn't have much time. I stripped off the cloak and left it folded on a rock near the water's edge. Deliberate. Visible. Let them think I drowned. Let them think I was reckless enough to cross during high water. The boots came next. Then the simple silver ring I wore, the only thing that had belonged to my mother. I placed it carefully on top of the cloak, my throat tight. If they found this, they would stop looking. If he found this, I couldn't think about that. The water was ice-cold and vicious, but I didn't cross it. Instead, I waded upstream for nearly an hour, letting the current mask my scent, before finally climbing out miles north of where I'd entered. My hands were numb. My feet bleeding. But I was free. Or I would be, once I put enough distance between us that the bond couldn't track me. I didn't look back. That was the hardest part, forcing myself to move forward, step after agonizing step, while every instinct screamed at me to return. To apologize. To let him claim me and be done with this impossible fight. But I remembered Lord Garrett's voice. Her job is to stabilize him and produce heirs. Nothing more. I remembered the way they spoke about me like I was livestock. And I kept walking. By mid-morning, I'd reached the outskirts of a human settlement. Small. Forgettable. The kind of place where no one asked questions if you had coin, which I didn't. I stole bread from a market stall, hating myself for it. Ate it behind a crumbling barn, hands still shaking. The bond was quieter now. Distant. Like a wound that hadn't started hurting yet. I told myself that meant it was working. That I'd made it far enough. But deep down, I knew the truth. The bond doesn't fade just because you run from it. It waits. That night, I found shelter in an abandoned grain mill on the edge of town. The roof leaked, and the floor was filthy, but it was dry enough. I curled up in the corner, the stolen cloak wrapped tight around me, and finally let myself cry. Not because I regretted leaving, but because I knew what I'd done to him. Lucien would wake soon, if he hadn't already. He would feel the bond stretching, fraying. He would search his chambers, the holes, the grounds. And then he would find the cloak, the boots, the ring. He would think I was dead. Or worse, he would know I'd left on purpose. That I'd chosen to sever what fate had tied between us. Alpha Kings do not forgive that kind of rejection. And Lucien Ashfell. Lucien would come for me. Not because he loved me, we barely knew each other. But because his wolf had already decided. And an alpha's wolf does not let go. I pressed my hand to my chest, feeling the bond pulse weakly beneath my ribs. I'm sorry, I thought into the dark. But I won't be your curse's cure. I won't be the thing that keeps you chained. Somewhere miles away, I imagined him waking. Reaching for me. Finding nothing. And I prayed he would hate me enough to let me go. But I knew better. Because I'd seen the way he looked at me in the blood moon's light. Like I was the only thing standing between him and oblivion. And now I was gone. Lucien woke to silence. Wrong. Incomplete. The curse had released him hours ago, but something else clawed at his chest now. Sharper, more urgent. The bond that had hummed contentedly through the night now felt stretched thin. Fraying. His eyes snapped open. Mira. The room was empty. He sat up slowly, scanning the shadows. She'd probably left at dawn to return to her duties. That made sense. That was protocol. But his wolf snarled in protest. Find her. He pushed to his feet, pulling on a shirt as he moved into the hall. A servant passed, eyes downcast. The girl who was here last night, Lucien said. Where is she? The servant's face went carefully blank. I don't know, Your Majesty. I haven't seen her since yesterday. The bond twisted. Wrong. By mid-morning, the entire palace was searching. No one had seen Mira Ashen since she'd requested permission to visit the temple the previous afternoon. She'd never arrived. The guards at the gate confirmed she'd left the grounds but not returned. And then they found the cloak. Lord Garrett delivered the news himself, his expression grim. "Your Majesty, near the northern river." Lucien didn't let him finish. He was already moving, the wolf taking over, instinct overriding rank and reason. The river was a 15-minute walk from the palace. He made it in 5. The cloak lay folded on the rock like an apology. The boots beside it, worn and muddy. And the ring, small, silver, catching the light, placed deliberately on top. Lucien's hands shook as he picked it up. Her scent clung to everything. Faint but unmistakable. Jasmine and smoke and something uniquely her. The bond screamed. She was alive. Somewhere. The connection would have shattered completely if she'd drowned. But she'd left. On purpose. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She hadn't been taken. Hadn't fled in panic. She'd planned this. Staged it. Left behind pieces of herself to make him stop looking. "Your Majesty," Garrett began carefully. "Get out. The council needs to." "I said get out." The alpha command rippled through the air, and Garrett stumbled backward, bowing quickly before retreating. Lucien stood alone at the river's edge, the ring clenched in his fist, and felt something inside him fracture. She'd chosen this. Chosen to run rather than accept the bond. And he couldn't even blame her. He'd seen the fear in her eyes when he'd leaned close. Had heard her confession, "You would hate me for it." She was right. If he'd claimed her that night, taken her choice, bound her to him through instinct alone, she would have hated him. And he would have become exactly what he'd spent his entire reign trying not to be. A tyrant. But this was worse. Because now she was gone, and his wolf was tearing him apart from the inside. He returned to the palace in silence. The council was waiting, faces carefully neutral. "We should send a formal search party," Lady Thane suggested. "If she's merely lost." "She's not lost," Lucien said quietly. "Then we issue a decree. Offer a reward for information leading to." "No." Garrett frowned. "Your Majesty, with respect, you cannot simply." "I will find her myself." The room went still. "You cannot abandon the court," Garrett said, his voice tight. "The spring treaties, the border disputes, I don't care." "Your Majesty." Lucien turned, and every wolf in the room felt the alpha power radiating off him in waves. "Not a threat. A promise." "She is my mate," he said, each word deliberate. "Chosen by fate. Recognized by my wolf. If I do not complete this bond, the curse will kill me. And when it does, the northern packs will fall into chaos." He let that sink in. "So you can choose. Support my hunt, or prepare for civil war." Silence. Then Lady Thane spoke, her voice careful. "How long will you be gone?" "As long as it takes." By nightfall, Lucien was already miles from the palace, following the faint thread of the bond north. She thought she'd severed it. Thought distance and water would erase the connection. She was wrong. The bond didn't weaken with distance. It adapted. Shifted. Became something more dangerous than instinct. Obsession. His wolf pushed forward, relentless and single-minded. Find her. Claim her. Make her understand. Lucien didn't fight it. For the first time in his life, he let the wolf lead. And somewhere ahead, days away, maybe weeks, Mira Ashen was running. Still believing she'd saved them both. Still unaware that leaving him was the one thing guaranteed to seal her fate. Because Lucien Ashfell had spent his entire life controlling his instincts. But she had become the one thing he could not control. And he would burn his crown, his kingdom, and every treaty he'd ever signed to find her. "She left before I could claim her," he thought, tucking the silver ring into his pocket. "Now I'll hunt her to the ends of the earth." I made it 3 days before the dreams started. Not nightmares. Worse. Memories that weren't mine. I saw the palace through his eyes. empty halls, searched chambers, the cloak in his hands. Felt his rage like a living thing coiled beneath my ribs. And then, always the pull. North. He was coming north. I woke gasping in whatever shelter I'd found. Barns, caves, abandoned cottages. My skin burning where the bond still clung to me like a brand. The distance wasn't enough. It would never be enough. By the 5th day, I'd crossed into neutral territory. Human lands where pack law held no weight and wolves moved carefully, keeping their nature hidden. I thought I'd be safe here. I was wrong. The first sign was the scent, wolf, but not Lucien's. Sharper. Colder. I was in a market town, trying to trade a stolen scarf for bread, when I felt eyes on me. Not curious. Hunting. I moved quickly, slipping between stalls, but the feeling followed. Whoever it was, they weren't trying to hide. They wanted me to know I was being watched. I ducked into an alley, heart pounding, and pressed myself against the wall. Counted to 30. Listened. Nothing. When I emerged, a man was waiting at the alley's mouth. Tall. Dark-haired. Eyes like winter frost. Alpha. Not Lucien. Mira Ashen, he said, voice smooth as poison. You're far from home. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Every instinct screamed run, but my legs wouldn't move. He smiled. I can smell him on you. Faint, but unmistakable. The Alpha King's scent. He tilted his head. Which means you're either his claimed mate, or you were supposed to be. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. He took a step closer. The bond is still active. I can feel it from here. Incomplete, fraying but alive. You ran from him. My silence was answer enough. His smile widened. How fascinating. Do you know what you're worth, little wolf? A bonded mate, unclaimed, unprotected, wandering neutral territory. He laughed softly. Your leverage. The kind that starts wars. I'm no one. You're his. That makes you everything. I ran. Didn't think, didn't plan. Just bolted. He didn't chase me. Didn't need to. Because when I finally stopped, lungs screaming, I realized he'd herded me. Away from the town. Away from witnesses. Into the woods. He appeared ahead of me like smoke, blocking the path. I'm not going to hurt you, he said calmly. I'm going to use you. There's a difference. Who are you? Malric Frostclaw. And I've been waiting a very long time for Lucien Ashfell to show weakness. His eyes gleamed. You, Mira Ashen, are that weakness. The bond flared, sudden, violent, terrified. And for the first time since I'd left, I felt Lucien through it. Not a memory. Not a dream. Him. Now. He'd felt my fear. Malric noticed immediately. Ah. He's close, isn't he? He inhaled deeply. I'd say, 2 days out. Maybe less if he's pushing himself. Why are you doing this? Because love makes kings reckless. And reckless kings make mistakes. He gestured, and 2 wolves emerged from the shadows. Guards, silent and efficient. Take her to the northern camp. Gently. We want her intact when he arrives. I fought. Clawed. Screamed. It didn't matter. They kept me in a tent on the edge of their camp, guarded, but not chained. Malric was smart enough to know that visible cruelty would enrage Lucien beyond negotiation. This was a trap, and I was the bait. He'll come for you, Malric said that evening, crouching outside the tent's entrance. Probably alone. Certainly furious. And when he does, I'll have what I want. What's that? His submission. Or his death. Either works. The bond pulsed, and I felt it, Lucien closer now. Moving faster than humanly possible. Coming for me. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt only guilt. Because I'd left to protect him from becoming a monster. And now he was walking into a trap because of me. That night, I dreamed of him again. But this time, it wasn't memory. It was real. His voice, rough and desperate, echoing through the bond, hold on. I'm coming. I woke with tears on my face. Don't, I wanted to scream back. It's a trap. He'll kill you. But the bond only carried feelings, not words. So all I could do was feel him racing toward me, relentless, unstoppable, burning everything in his path to get here. And I understood, finally, what I'd done. I hadn't saved him by leaving. I'd doomed him. Because Lucien Ashfell would trade his crown, his kingdom, his life, just to keep me safe. And Malric Frostclaw knew it. He arrived at dawn. I felt him before I saw him, the bond suddenly blazing so bright it stole my breath. Every nerve in my body screamed his name. Lucien. The camp erupted into chaos. Shouts. Running footsteps. The clash of steel. But through it all, I felt only him. Moving through Malric's wolves like a storm, unstoppable and furious. The tent flap tore open. And there he stood. He looked half wild. Hair disheveled. Clothes torn. Blood, not his, splattered across his chest. But his eyes. His eyes were pure gold, the wolf so close to the surface I could see it burning through. Mira. My name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a curse all at once. Lucien, you shouldn't have. Don't. His voice was raw. Don't tell me I shouldn't have come. He crossed the space between us in 2 strides, hands framing my face, searching for injuries. The bond sang at his touch, completing a circuit that had been broken for too long. Did they hurt you? No. But this is a trap. Malric wants. I know what he wants. Lucien's thumb brushed my cheek. He sent word 3 days ago. Told me exactly where you were. Told me to come alone if I wanted you back unharmed. My stomach dropped. And you came anyway? What choice did I have? The tent flap moved. Malric entered, flanked by 6 wolves, all armed. Alpha King. His voice was silk over steel. How good of you to accept my invitation. Lucien didn't turn. Didn't release me. State your terms. Simple. Abdicate. Name me as successor to the Northern Pax. Do this, and the girl goes free. No, I breathed. But Lucien's expression didn't change. And if I refuse? Malric shrugged. Then I keep her. The bond will drive you mad within weeks. The curse will consume you. And when you're dead, the Pax will fall into chaos anyway. Either way, I win. He smiled. But this way at least she lives. The bond trembled between us, Lucien's rage bleeding through, barely controlled. You would trade your kingdom, Malric continued, for a girl you barely know. A low-ranking wolf who ran from you. Who left you. He laughed. Tell me, your majesty, is she really worth your crown? Lucien finally turned. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. Deadly. You're asking the wrong question. Am I? The question isn't whether she's worth my crown. His eyes blazed. The question is whether you're prepared for what happens when I choose her anyway. The air shifted. I felt it through the bond, the moment Lucien stopped fighting his wolf. Stopped trying to be the controlled political king. And became something far more dangerous. I came alone, he said softly, because you demanded it. Not because I'm weak. Not because I'm desperate. He took a step forward. But because I wanted you to understand something. Malric's wolves tensed. A king rules through treaties, alliances, carefully balanced power. Another step. But a mate. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. A mate protects through blood and bone and absolute violence. You're outnumbered, Malric said, but his voice wavered. I don't need numbers. The alpha command hit like a shockwave. Every wolf in the tent except Malric dropped to their knees, unable to resist. The sheer force of Lucien's will, refined by years of controlling his curse, channeled now into pure dominance, left no room for defiance. Malric stumbled back. You can't. I am the Alpha King, Lucien said, voice reverberating with power. My authority doesn't end at my borders. It exists wherever I stand. He looked at the kneeling wolves. Leave. Now. Or I will consider you enemies of the crown. They ran. Only Malric remained, fury twisting his features. This isn't over. Lucien moved faster than I could track. One moment he was beside me. The next, his hand was around Malric's throat, lifting him off the ground. It is, Lucien said quietly. Touch her again, and I won't be merciful. He dropped Malric, who collapsed gasping. When Lucien turned back to me, the gold in his eyes had dimmed slightly. The wolf still present, but leashed. We're leaving. Lucien. Not here. His hand found mine, and the bond flared. Please, Mira. Let me get you somewhere safe. Then you can yell at me for everything I did wrong. We didn't speak as we left the camp. Didn't speak as he led me through the forest, moving with purpose towards some destination I didn't know. But I felt everything through the bond. His relief. His rage. His fear that I would run again. And underneath it all, a question he was too afraid to ask. Why did you leave? Finally, when we reached a clearing with a small stream, he stopped. Turned to face me. I won't claim you, he said, voice rough. Not like this. Not when you're afraid. I'm not afraid of you. Then why did you run? The question hung between us, raw, vulnerable, devastating. And for the first time, I told him the truth. Because they were going to make me your political solution, I whispered. A tool to stabilize your curse. A womb for your heirs. Not a partner. Not a choice. Something shattered in his expression. Mira. And I couldn't stay. Not if it meant losing myself. Not even for you. Silence. Then, slowly, Lucien sank to his knees. The Alpha King. On his knees. In front of me. Then give me terms, he said quietly. Tell me what you need. What you want. And I will spend the rest of my life proving I see you as more than a solution. My breath caught. You would do that? I would burn my crown for you, he said simply. So yes, I would do that. And I realized, finally, what the bond had been trying to tell me all along. This wasn't about fate or instinct or politics. This was about choice. His. And mine. Stand up, I whispered. He did. And when I reached for him, the bond didn't feel like a chain. It felt like coming home. He arrived at dawn. I felt him before I saw him, the bond suddenly blazing so bright it stole my breath. Every nerve in my body screamed his name. Lucien. The camp erupted into chaos. Shouts. Running footsteps. The clash of steel. But through it all, I felt only him. Moving through Malric's wolves like a storm, unstoppable and furious. The tent flap tore open. And there he stood. He looked half wild. Hair disheveled. Clothes torn. Blood, not his, splattered across his chest. But his eyes. His eyes were pure gold, the wolf so close to the surface I could see it burning through. Mira. My name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a curse all at once. Lucien, you shouldn't have. Don't. His voice was raw. Don't tell me I shouldn't have come. He crossed the space between us in 2 strides, hands framing my face, searching for injuries. The bond sang at his touch, completing a circuit that had been broken for too long. Did they hurt you? No. But this is a trap. Malric wants. I know what he wants. Lucien's thumb brushed my cheek. He sent word 3 days ago. Told me exactly where you were. Told me to come alone if I wanted you back unharmed. My stomach dropped. And you came anyway? What choice did I have? The tent flap moved. Malric entered, flanked by 6 wolves, all armed. Alpha King. His voice was silk over steel. How good of you to accept my invitation. Lucien didn't turn. Didn't release me. State your terms. Simple. Abdicate. Name me as successor to the Northern Pax. Do this, and the girl goes free. No, I breathed. But Lucien's expression didn't change. And if I refuse? Malric shrugged. Then I keep her. The bond will drive you mad within weeks. The curse will consume you. And when you're dead, The packs will fall into chaos anyway. Either way, I win. He smiled. But this way at least she lives. The bond trembled between us, Lucien's rage bleeding through, barely controlled. You would trade your kingdom, Malric continued, for a girl you barely know. A low-ranking wolf who ran from you. Who left you. He laughed. Tell me, your majesty, is she really worth your crown? Lucien finally turned. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. Deadly. You're asking the wrong question. Am I? The question isn't whether she's worth my crown. His eyes blazed. The question is whether you're prepared for what happens when I choose her anyway. The air shifted. I felt it through the bond, the moment Lucien stopped fighting his wolf. Stopped trying to be the controlled political king. And became something far more dangerous. I came alone, he said softly, because you demanded it. Not because I'm weak. Not because I'm desperate. He took a step forward. But because I wanted you to understand something. Malric's wolves tensed. A king rules through treaties, alliances, carefully balanced power. Another step. But a mate. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. A mate protects through blood and bone and absolute violence. You're outnumbered, Malric said, but his voice wavered. I don't need numbers. The alpha command hit like a shockwave. Every wolf in the tent except Malric dropped to their knees, unable to resist. The sheer force of Lucien's will, refined by years of controlling his curse, channeled now into pure dominance, left no room for defiance. Malric stumbled back. You can't. I am the Alpha King, Lucien said, voice reverberating with power. My authority doesn't end at my borders. It exists wherever I stand. He looked at the kneeling wolves. Leave. Now. Or I will consider you enemies of the crown. They ran. Only Malric remained, fury twisting his features. This isn't over. Lucien moved faster than I could track. One moment he was beside me. The next, his hand was around Malric's throat, lifting him off the ground. It is, Lucien said quietly. Touch her again, and I won't be merciful. He dropped Malric, who collapsed gasping. When Lucien turned back to me, the gold in his eyes had dimmed slightly. The wolf still present, but leashed. We're leaving. Lucien. Not here. His hand found mine, and the bond flared. Please, Mira. Let me get you somewhere safe. Then you can yell at me for everything I did wrong. We didn't speak as we left the camp. Didn't speak as he led me through the forest, moving with purpose toward some destination I didn't know. But I felt everything through the bond. His relief. His rage. His fear that I would run again. And underneath it all, a question he was too afraid to ask. Why did you leave? Finally, when we reached a clearing with a small stream, he stopped. Turned to face me. I won't claim you, he said, voice rough. Not like this. Not when you're afraid. I'm not afraid of you. Then why did you run? The question hung between us, raw, vulnerable, devastating. And for the first time, I told him the truth. Because they were going to make me your political solution, I whispered. A tool to stabilize your curse. A womb for your heirs. Not a partner. Not a choice. Something shattered in his expression. Mira. And I couldn't stay. Not if it meant losing myself. Not even for you. Silence. Then, slowly, Lucien sank to his knees. The Alpha King. On his knees. In front of me. Then give me terms, he said quietly. Tell me what you need. What you want. And I will spend the rest of my life proving I see you as more than a solution. My breath caught. You would do that? I would burn my crown for you, he said simply. So yes, I would do that. And I realized, finally, what the bond had been trying to tell me all along. This wasn't about fate or instinct or politics. This was about choice. His. And mine. Stand up, I whispered. He did. And when I reached for him, the bond didn't feel like a chain. It felt like coming home. 3 weeks. That's how long we had before everything changed. 3 weeks of living in abandoned cottages and forest clearings. Of Lucien teaching me to hunt, to track, to trust my wolf. Of long conversations by firelight where he told me about the curse, how it started after his father's death, how it fed on isolation and duty, how every alpha king before him had needed a mate to survive it. It's not romantic, he'd said one night. It's brutal. The bond doesn't cure the curse, it just gives you something stronger to anchor to than the darkness. 3 weeks of him proving, over and over, that he saw me. Not a solution. Not a tool. Me. And 3 weeks of the bond growing stronger, until I could feel his heartbeat even when we weren't touching. The curse came for him on the 21st night. I woke to find him gone from our camp, and the bond screaming in distress. I found him by the stream, on his knees, shaking violently. Lucien. Don't. His voice was fractured, barely human. Don't come closer. But I did anyway. His eyes were pure gold now, the wolf completely in control. Fighting him. Destroying him. You need to claim me, I said quietly. No. The word came out as a growl. Not like this. Not because you pity me. I don't pity you. I knelt in front of him, cupping his face even as he tried to pull away. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. You said you needed time. I had time. My voice broke. 3 weeks of watching you choose me every single day. 3 weeks of you respecting every boundary I set. 3 weeks of proving this is real. I pressed my forehead to his. I'm ready, Lucien. But only if you are. The bond blazed between us, desperate, painful, pleading. Are you sure? He whispered. I've never been more sure of anything. The claiming wasn't gentle. It was raw and fierce and absolutely mutual. His teeth at my throat, the bond snapping into place with a force that stole my breath. Magic flooded through me. His power, my power, something new born between us. The curse shattered. I felt it break like glass, felt the darkness that had been eating him alive dissolve under the weight of the completed bond. And when it was done, when we collapsed together in the grass, I felt whole for the first time in my life. Mira, he breathed against my skin. My mate. My choice. My alpha, I whispered back. My choice too. The bond hummed contentedly, no longer a chain or a demand. Just connection. Pure and unbreakable. We stayed by the stream until dawn, wrapped in each other, the world narrowed to just us. But reality came with the sunrise. And reality arrived in the form of Lord Garrett. He appeared at the edge of our camp, flanked by palace guards, his expression carefully neutral. Your Majesty, he said, bowing. We've been searching for you for 3 weeks. Lucien stood slowly, positioning himself between Garrett and me. I told you I would return when I was ready. The council grows. Concerned. Garrett's eyes flicked to me, and I saw the calculation there. The recognition. I see you've completed the bond. I have. Then perhaps you'll return to the palace now? There are matters that require your attention. Treaties to sign. Alliances to. No. Garrett blinked. Your Majesty? I'll return, Lucien said carefully, when my mate is ready. Not before. I touched his arm. Lucien, you can't avoid the throne forever. I'm not avoiding it. I'm prioritizing. He looked at Garrett. Tell the council I'll be back within the week. But I'm bringing changes with me. What kind of changes? The kind where my mate isn't treated like a political accessory. His voice hardened. She will have full autonomy. Full voice in court. And anyone who questions her authority questions mine. Garrett's face went pale. Your Majesty, the council will never. Then they can find a new king. The air crackled with alpha power. Garrett bowed quickly. I'll inform them. He left, guards trailing behind him, and I turned to Lucien. You just threatened to abdicate. I meant it. They'll fight you on this. The traditions, the expectations. Let them. He pulled me close, the bond warm between us. I didn't survive the curse just to let them cage you. We do this together. On our terms. We returned to the palace 6 days later. The court was waiting, council members, visiting alphas, wolves from every major pack. All of them staring at me. The low-ranking girl who'd become their queen. Lord Garrett stepped forward. Your Majesty, if we might speak privately about the treaty negotiations. No. Lucien's hand found mine. Anything you say to me, you say to her. She is my mate. My equal. And you will treat her as such. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lady Thane spoke up, voice sharp. With respect, Your Majesty, she has no training in politics, no understanding of. Then teach her. He looked around the room. All of you. She's brilliant, observant, and stronger than any of you gave her credit for. And she's staying. The bond flared with his certainty. And I realized something in that moment. I hadn't just chosen him. He'd spent 3 weeks choosing me over everything else. Over duty. Over tradition. Over his crown. That was worth fighting for. I won't be easy to teach, I said, voice carrying across the hall. I'll ask questions. Challenge traditions. Make mistakes. I squeezed Lucien's hand. But I'm not going anywhere. Silence. Then, slowly, Lady Thane bowed. Welcome home, Your Grace. That night, in the chambers we now shared, Lucien pulled me close. Are you ready for this? He murmured. The politics, the battles, all of it? No, I admitted. But I'm ready to try. The bond hummed between us, complete, balanced ours. And somewhere in the distance, I felt it. A pulse of power. Ancient and waiting. The claiming hadn't just bound us together. It had awakened something else. Something the court didn't know about yet. Something even we didn't fully understand. I pressed my hand to my stomach, where new magic thrummed. Lucien, I whispered. There's something you should know. He looked at me, and I saw the future in his eyes. Complicated. Dangerous. Beautiful. Ours. The visions started 3 days after we returned to the palace. Not dreams. Memories. Ancient ones that didn't belong to me. I saw wolves running under a moon that burned silver-white. Heard voices chanting in a language I shouldn't understand but somehow did. Felt power, old vast watching, coil through my veins like recognition. And at the center of it all, a woman who looked like me. Same dark hair. Same build. But her eyes glowed with something inhuman. Daughter of Ash, the voices whispered. Blood of the first betrayal. I woke gasping, Lucien's arms immediately around me. Another one? I nodded, unable to speak. This was the 5th vision in 3 nights. Each one more vivid than the last. We need to tell someone, Lucien said carefully. The court historian, maybe. Or, no. I pulled away, wrapping the blanket tighter around myself. Not yet. Not until I understand what this is. But I already knew. The claiming hadn't just broken the curse. It had unlocked something in me. Something the Ashen bloodline had buried for generations. Magic. By midday, I couldn't hide it anymore. I was in the library, searching through old pack histories, when it happened. A book fell from the shelf above me, too high to reach, too far to have been knocked loose by accident. I caught it without thinking. And it burned. Not with heat. With power. The cover was unmarked, the leather ancient and cracked. But the moment my fingers touched it, words blazed across my vision. The covenant of first blood. A record of the original packs and the price of their power. My hands shook as I opened it. The first page showed a map, the territories as they'd existed centuries ago, before the pack wars, before the treaties. And there, marked in red ink, Ashen territory, cursed ground. What are you reading? I slammed the book shut, heart hammering. Lady Thane stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Just history, I managed. She moved closer, eyes fixed on the book in my hands. That's a restricted text. Only council members are permitted to. She stopped. Stared. Where did you find that? It fell. Impossible. That section is sealed with alpha magic. No one without council authority can access. Her gaze sharpened. Unless you're not bound by the same restrictions anymore. The air between us crackled. What does that mean? I asked quietly. Lady Thane studied me for a long moment. Then she closed the library door. How much do you know about your bloodline? Nothing. My father never spoke of it. Because he was ashamed. She sat across from me, movements precise. The Ashen Pack wasn't just defeated in rebellion. They were exiled. Centuries ago, before your father's time. Before even his grandfather's time. Why? Because they broke the covenant. Her voice dropped. They used forbidden magic. Blood magic. The kind that binds souls and twists fate. She tapped the book. That's what this records. The original sin of the Ashen line. My stomach turned. What does that have to do with me? Everything. Lady Thane leaned forward. The claiming bond amplifies power. For most wolves, that means enhanced senses, stronger instincts. But for someone with ashen blood. She paused. It awakens what was locked away. What should have stayed locked away. The visions. The burning. The voices. What's happening to me? I whispered. You're becoming what your ancestors were before they were cursed. Lady Thane's expression was grave. A blood witch. I told Lucien that night. All of it. The visions, the book, Lady Thane's revelation. He listened in silence, jaw tight, the bond thrumming with barely controlled emotion. Blood witch, he finally said. That's not possible. Blood witches were extinct. The last one died in the pack wars. Apparently not. He stood, pacing. If the council finds out, if the other packs learn you have access to that kind of power, they'll see me as a threat. They'll demand your execution. His voice turned harsh. Blood witches nearly destroyed the packs. The covenant was written specifically to prevent them from rising again. The bond ached with his fear. Not of me. For me. So what do we do? I asked. Lucien stopped pacing. Looked at me with something fierce and protective and absolutely certain. We hide it. Master it. And we make damn sure no one can use it against you. And if I can't control it, then we figure it out together. He pulled me close, the bond settling into determination. You're not your ancestors, Mira. You're not their sins or their curses. You're my mate. And I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you for something you didn't choose. That night, alone in our chambers, I opened the book again. The words glowed softly, responding to my touch. Asterisk to the daughter who reads this, you are the product of a broken line and a desperate hope. The magic in your blood is both gift and curse. Use it wisely. Use it carefully. And never forget, power always demands payment. Asterisk. I turned the page. And saw my own face staring back at me. Not a portrait. A prophecy. When ash and crown unite. When the broken bond is made whole. The first daughter will awaken. And the old debts will come due. My hand moved to my stomach, where new life and new magic pulsed in tandem. Lucien had broken his curse by claiming me. But I had awakened something far older. Something that wouldn't stay buried much longer. And somewhere in the dark, I felt it stir. The debt. Waiting. Watching. Hungry. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next.